We have changed a bit the speakers of this panel. It's different than you have one in the printed version. We have today with us, my name is Kinga Brudzińska. I'm analyst at the Polish Institute of International Affairs. And we have three people from outside Europe. From Egypt, we have Sahar Talat. She's a journalist and media researcher from Egypt. She also lectures currently in Spain in one of the best Spanish universities, Complutense. We have Katarina Kruk, the social media journalist and Euromaidan activist. We have Nima Reshdan, one of the first Iranian cyber activists and internet freedom advocate. He's also a researcher and trainer for democratic activists in repressive environments. We also have Jerzy Pomianowski, Executive Director of the European Endowment for Democracy based in Brussels. And we have with us Piotr Buras, Head of the European Council of Foreign Relations, and he represents the Warsaw office. I will start with the short remarks and introduction, and then I will ask questions to our speakers, and I hopefully will we will have some time to the public to ask the question, as you don't have many possibilities to ask them during the big plenary sessions. So I ask our speakers to be sharp. So technically speaking, today we have more democracies than ever before. According to the Economist Democracy Index, slightly less than 1/2 of the world's population lives now in democracy of some sort. Democracy still attracts. We see a million of people going to the streets still willing to fight for the ideas. We've seen it during the Arab uprising, and we've recently seen in Ukraine. Technology seems to play in democracy favor. It does not only allow activists to mobilize, express themselves, but it also does not leave any regime immune. Look, China or Saudi Arabia. But today, democracy is going through some difficult times. Since 2005, democracy experiences yearly more setbacks than gains. In 2013, it was 54 setbacks and 40 gains. Democracy problems in the West are not overlooked elsewhere. America and Europe have lost their appeal as role models and shining examples of democracy. There are another paths of developments that seem to be attractive. Today, China or Persian Gulf countries have a right to think that they know better how to run their country. They develop an alternative model to the West that seems to work just fine for them. We see that democracy does not reach the hearts everywhere. Look, BRICS, they argue that the West is selective in supporting democracy in third countries, and during the UN voting on annexation of Crimea, they sided with the folk from BRICS with Russia. So we used to believe that democracy was the only way, but it seems that the verdict is still out. Having this opportunity to have such distinguished speakers, I will first turn to Katarina Kruk and ask her to tell us about the main challenges to Ukraine transformation and what are the chances that this transition would be sustainable this time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming and for inviting me. It was a great honor. And well, when I was coming here to Wroclaw, first of all, I was thinking, what should I say? Because I've been an activist of Euromaidan for almost 5 months. And while doing this, you live in a different reality. You simply react. You don't create a situation, unfortunately. And right now, when Euromaidan has won to some extent, now we have absolutely different situation. We have make this win happening, and to become it actually something which is sustainable and will continue. And right now, I would like to go to some challenges because there are a lot of them. Of course, a lot of you would think that the most important and the biggest challenge right now is military situation and this aggression which we have in the Crimea and also in the east of the country. But it seems to me this is the topic for different discussion. I would like to focus on the inside situation, this internal domestic situation of Ukraine, and what challenges and what difficulties we Ukrainians are creating to the success of Euromaidan and the success of our revolution. And first of all, the biggest and the most problematic challenge, because this is both a challenge and both a chance to make this revolution sustainable and successful, because I would like to speak about people. Because people are both the biggest problem and the biggest advantage right now in Ukraine. Who is the problem? The problem is that we have old new politicians, and this is the problem we used to have during and after Orange Revolution and right now. Currently, government consists of people who used to be in different fields, different political parties. They were in the field of authorities, they were opposition, and right now, once again, they're having these authorities, they're having instruments and power to change and to shape Ukraine. But the biggest problem, and what we can see from the inside, that faces of first people have changed. But inside ministries, inside public offices, we still have people who used to work for Yanukovych and for his team. And this is the problem, because to some extent, it's very easy to fire a person, but it's really very hard to find someone who would like to take responsibility for making decisions and to change the situation right now in Ukraine. And I know it from my personal experience, because I have conducted a lot of talks and I have talked to many different people who were saying that government is doing something wrong, this or other minister is doing something wrong, but when those people were asked, you can go to the office, you can take responsibility and make things change and change them the way you would like to see. And those people, they say, no, I'm not a specialist, I'm not an expert, I can only give you an advice. And this is the problem, that people are willing to give advices, but not taking the responsibility to make them the reality. And just like speaking about this problem of people, I would like to go to the challenge, one of the biggest challenge, on the other hand, not on the governmental side, but the side of civil society. Euromaidan has shown that civil society is in Ukraine. There was a kind of a discussion before Euromaidan whether people in Ukraine are ready to make their political statements aloud, and are they ready to make them clear and to make them actually to be executed in the political sphere. But what we see right now after Euromaidan is that people still are ready and willing to criticize, to control, but they aren't ready, or maybe they still don't want or don't know how to do this, to create alternative versions, to create alternative projects. This is what I see, and our biggest fault as an activist of Maidan, I see as our biggest disadvantage, of this Euromaidan movement. After we have gained this new government, new authorities, to some extent, Euromaidan has relaxed. From time to time, you can see some posts of activists that new government is performing badly, they aren't making quick changes, and the changes they are making, they aren't enough. But I don't see the willingness to make the change on their side. They aren't presenting alternative programs. They are, well, maybe me, I should refer to this, because this is the problem of Euromaidan activists in general. So we have to make this switch from just passive controlling, it's not enough to go to the city center or to organize the rally. The hardest part and the most important part is what's going to happen after this rally. Is how you're going to perform when you have power, when you have gained power, and when you have a chance to make the change you would like to see in the country. So it seems to me that this is the biggest problem for the Ukrainian civic society, and first of all for the government, because they don't see this kind of support. And this is the biggest difference between Orange Revolution and Euromaidan, because after Euromaidan, politicians who have gained the power, they don't have any support from the side of the society. Society is controlling and criticizing them, but they don't have this credit of trust politicians after Orange Revolution used to have. And of course, one of the biggest challenge, first of all, both challenge and a problem for Ukrainian society and for Ukrainian government is system. Because we have changed only faces, but system which used to work for Yanukovych and for his team is still in the office, is still in the place. I didn't see, honestly, I see only willingness and bright words, but we still haven't done some very important steps in order to break this vertically integrated system, which gave all the power to only one person. And it's still, this is the still situation which take place in Ukraine. So we have changed the government, we have changed faces, but we haven't changed the system. And it seems to me that the biggest fault is the system, because thanks to this system, or maybe in other way, Yanukovych used faults in Ukrainian system that after Orange Revolution, people were more willing to have some strong power to make some order in Ukraine, as they were saying. And he used this advantage in order to create this very strong vertically integrated system in order to control everything which is going on in Ukraine. And right now, actually, well, not right now, but this system helped him to remain in office for so many years and to make this repression even more and more aggressive. And right now, the biggest advantage of our situation is that we have the will of people to change it. But unfortunately, and I still don't know why, and probably I know why, but I even don't want to answer to this question to myself because it's not a very optimistic answer. But current government aren't making steps in order to break the system. It looks like they are more willing to leave the system and to use it in their own way, but not to break it. It seems to me this is the biggest problem. You have to change country, you have to reform the way it was working. And back to chances very briefly, because it seems to me that we will have some questions, and I know about the time. And sorry if I make such long statement, but when I was thinking about those chances and why we have a great chance this time it's gonna work, we're gonna make it, and Ukraine gonna be successful democratic state, is that we're in debt, in huge debt. And when I say we, I mean first of all myself, I mean my family, my friends, and the whole Ukraine. We're in debt to those people who have died, who were shot, who were killed on Maidan, who were tortured. And having this understanding that in order to live in democratic, in better state, someone has sacrificed their lives, it seems to me that we have no other way but to make this work. We have this unique chance history have gave us. And it seems to me that my generation, maybe it will take us some years, maybe this change won't be just in time, or maybe it will take us 10 or 20 years, but the understanding that for those people who were on Maidan from the very first day and who have seen blood on the streets of Khreshchatyk and of Independence Square, the understanding that probably we remained alive just to make this change in Ukraine, just to make those people who have died and their families be proud of them and of their sacrifice. So probably this is the biggest chance and the most important reason for us to change and to reform Ukraine. There are some other reasons. They are mostly political and economical ones. There are situations which they make us to act. Economic situation which is really very hard, and honestly if we would like to remain the state, an independent state, not a bankrupt, we have to react very quickly. If we would like to remain an independent state and not some region of Russia, we have to act very quickly. But apart from the political and economical reasons, there is this ideological and life-changing reason, and this is what was going on Maidan for 3 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. When you mentioned that one of the problems is the people, Egypt came to my mind when I was there in November, when I was asking what was going on and what are the Egyptian challenges. The answer was very often, those are our people. So we have started to ask ourselves recently that if the Tahrir Square protests brought down anything more than the old regime back. in December 2012, 61% of Egyptians said that democratic government was more important for them than the strong leader. So what have happened in Egypt, and is it democracy or stability that the Egyptian people want now?
Thank you very much for being with you here, and thank you for the invitation. First of all, before answering the question, I would like to say something that it is written here. The session is Imperiled revolutions. Revolutions are not in danger. Revolutions are only created to change and to implement more and more democracy. I think the people are going out in the streets because they want to change their reality. So I don't think it's appropriate, and it's not. And of course, it's not. There is no end for democracy. On the contrary, what we are facing now, we are changing images of democracy, tools of democracy, factors that are helping democracy to develop more tools. And regarding your question about stability and if you have stability or democracy, I think both, because both are interconnected. But stability in which sense? I was asking myself. Stability in having the same old rules? No. Stability is related to security maybe here, because people have been facing a real danger regarding their own personal security. And this has enforced them to go out again in the street and to ask democratically for months to the last regime to have an earlier presidential election, or to get a referendum about his own choices of this policy that we had last year with the Islamists. So what happened during the last year, it was a tremendous change regarding the political decision from bottom down of democracy, which is the people got into a real practicing democracy peacefully, without entering into any violent actions. They were. I remember when we got the idea of the rebellion paper. The rebellion paper was only a demand from so many people that we want personally, each one want to change, and we want to have an action plan regarding the future of Egypt. And it was peacefully done without any intervention from anybody. And it was not easy before to ask from individuals in the street if they want to sign the paper, and they were voluntarily giving us their ID, and we were putting all their personal details, including telephones. So this is a huge change. Also, we got a new constitution. This constitution is, I think, one of the best constitutions until now. It could be better, but it's a huge progress regarding towards democracy. At least we have in the second article that men and women have the same, are equal in front of the law, which was not in the constitution handled and written by the Islamists. We have between maybe half of the local parliament, it will be, or the local election. It will be 25% for women and 25% for young generation, which is also something real advanced regarding democracy. Other tools that we have been developing, which is now we got to know there is a will of the people, and we are not accepting any political will that does not fit with our popular will. And the civil society now is getting more and more solid. And regardless the political parties, and regardless the weakness of the political party, because the people themselves, they are determined. We have been suffering during the last 3 years from disorder, from a huge misunderstanding of political power, and what we want now is to set a new civil and democratic state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will turn to Nima. Is there any wind of change in Iran after the last elections? We saw a huge demonstration in Iran in 2009, back 2 years before that Arab uprising was there, starting in Tunisia. So what happened to those protesters in Tehran?
Right. Let me begin with an example much closer to here. What those protests in 1953 East Berlin, 1956 Budapest, and 1968 Prague have in common? Well, in one hand, all of those protests are unsuccessful and they have been suppressed. In all those cases, people cried. They asked for a free world to get involved. Reaction they got was absolute silence, so no one was interested in getting involved. In all those cases, Soviet tanks had free right to come and shoot at people. But at the same time, one can argue all these three cases are birth of a new Hungary, a birth of a new Czech identity. The profound impact of those, unsuccessful revolutions on Czech or Hungarian political psyche is so profound that even you can follow the patterns of voting and electoral behavior in today's Czech Republic and Hungary, 70 years after that. Now, in 16 June 2009, 5 million people came to Tehran's Shahiyad or Azadi Square or Freedom Square. This is the largest, in terms of numbers, this is the largest political gathering in entire history at the time that we started to count. So there is no non-religious or no funeral gathering anywhere getting close to this number of 5, which is the government figures. I would argue that it's true that people's calls haven't been heard. There haven't not been even verbal, solidarity with Iranian people from the world leaders, as it was the case in Egypt. In Egypt, the official position of, for example, United States was Mr. Mubarak lost legitimacy. We did not have that in Iran. There was no word. There was absolutely no word. It was silent. So. And yet people stayed 100 days in the streets. And I would argue that a new Iranian political psyche has been born. If you go through social media analysis and with different approaches that you can survey people, I can give you one of examples. First of all, let me remind, this is a country which invested for the last 35 years the highest amount of resources per capita in propaganda and using new technology. They are not Taliban, which is forbidding the TVs. No, they employed the latest technology for brainwashing, for propaganda, for preaching hatred. Not only on Iranian public, not only on primary school, where children are being taught of blood libel and protocols of elders of Zion in their material, but also throughout the world. It's really difficult to find any sort of ongoing world conflict, including Syria, that Iran has no direct involvement through propaganda, export of terrorism, and means like that. But still, if you take a look at the socio-psychological research on Iranian public, one of the good examples is a study, a very detailed study by Yuval Prat and his colleagues in Herzliya, shows that Iran public opinion, especially after events of 2009, has more positive view through the West, through the United States, vis-a-vis conflict in the Middle East, liberal democratic values, in all aspects of it. This is unthinkable. So you have a country which has been under sanctions, and people basically bombed by this amount of propaganda, which is unthinkable. Again, TV, school system, prayers, all those things. But this country has more favorable view on the United States and West and NATO and all of this than United States allies in the region, which are receiving a huge military assistance. So it's true. It has been an unsuccessful, tragic event, but I think the society changed in a way that it's at least the future I see is very, very hopeful. Let me give you an example. It's a very story which is touching to me. 3 weeks ago, a friend of mine she's a journalist in London, published a photo of herself taking off her headscarf. Just in London, this is something you can do. And then there was the first comment on Facebook from an Iranian girl from Tehran that this is my photo. I did it in Tehran. I did this little piece of my stealthy freedom in Tehran. In less than a week, in one day, so I was amazed by this, the buzz it created through social media there. In one day, 47,000 brave Iranian women, they took their headscarves, they went deliberately to state and Islamic symbols, like statues, in front of ministries, the photos of supreme leader, and they took off the headscarf. Right now, this campaign has 5 million members. This is unthinkable. We are talking about a country which is paying $1 billion for filtering internet. We are talking about a country which people have no access to internet. And I don't know, I'm a social media researcher. I haven't seen this level of engagement in any online campaign anywhere, including places that the internet is not filtered. So I think what happened in, again, 2009 was a suppressed revolution, was unsuccessful. But let us see it in the big picture. It's still too early to say Hungarians people hope of freedom is dead, or Polish case, or East German, or Czech people. There are bright days to come. At least I'm very optimistic and hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nima, for those insights from Iran. I have to say, yes, the Iranian women are brave, and I was also surprised when I was in Tehran how willing they were and how they were open, and they approached us ladies talking about how they would like to have more freedom and travel, and they were very talkative, asking questions at the seminars. But also the headscarves, the way they used, is very loose to compare with other countries that are very liberal there. So we've heard many challenges, both from the European neighborhood countries and for Iran. So I now turn to Jerzy and ask him, if the EU can deliver democracy in its support, and what the EU can do to support those movements. We've heard that the civil society is growing and is being more solid both in Ukraine and Egypt.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy to be here with the people with whom I'm often working on a daily basis. Not with every country, because European Endowment for Democracy is now focused on the European neighborhood. The answer to the question whether Europe can deliver democracy is very simple. Of course not. Democracy is not something you can deliver, you can export. It always has to be brought from inside. But at the same time, it is our moral obligation that anyone that shares same values as we do should not stay alone. And this call from Tehran is a very strong message we need to receive. So if we see someone that shares similar values, whether it's in our own country or it's outside our own country, it's just an imperative to join, to give a hand and to stand together and to do things together. So there is no obviously role model. That's why we cannot say that the European or American model is not anymore attractive. It's not a model. It's just a set of values that are still attractive. And we can see this very easily analyzing what people are saying, whether they are in Maidan, in Tahrir Square, or in any other locations, when they are calling for certain values, certain rights, they are all the time the same. So by all means, those basic sets of values, whether we call them democratic values, European values, universal values, human rights, doesn't matter. These are all the time the same set of values, and the people deserves to enjoy them, and that what we call, in a simplified way, democracy. But it's big simplification, because we have to remember that every nation, every group of people needs to build their own democracy based on their cultural context, based on their history, based on the conditions, circumstances in which they are developing their own society. But as I said, there is a common set of values, and that's how we recognize what is and what is not democracy. And here we are clearly coming to those who are overusing certain words, like President Putin is trying to redefine what democracy means, reducing democracy to popularity and manipulated popularity within the control propaganda machine, and trying to pretend that solidarity is sending guns over the border. It's not a solidarity. So we have to be very careful debating all issues today, not allowing ourselves to fall into discussing caricatures of the real phenomena, of the real values, of the honest activities compared to manipulations and lies. So from this perspective, if we look into the tools and the instruments and also mechanisms that Europe can offer to support those who are fighting for those values in their societies, unfortunately the picture is not yet that bright. The European Endowment for Democracy was just created a year ago. It is good to have it, but it is definitely not enough. There is a European Instrument for Democracy and Human Rights, but very bureaucratic, slow mechanism, focusing on human rights and election process. It's good that we have it, but it's not enough. In every framework of international cooperation, we do have support to civil society, but it's always a margin. If we look into OECD DAC statistics, and we see that only 30% of international assistance go through and to civil society, that shows that we are not really trying to see the most important part of democratic transition, democratic process, which is society itself, not government-to-government based relation. So if we see then that out of 30% that is going to civil or through civil society, only 1/15 of this 30%, so it means 2% of overall assistance goes to civil society that is based in the countries where we try to provide international support. That shows that the ratio is extremely low. So we are not really investing where we should be investing. And the case of Ukraine is an extremely good case, because this was one of the countries where Europe started to invest through Eastern Partnership process a little bit more, just a little bit more, over the last 7 years in civil society than it was done in other regions. And I would say that the maturity and the ability of self-organization in Ukraine is amazing with this very little investment. And I'm not saying it's because of this investment, but it was our moral obligation to have this extended help, and it produced effect because also there were so many willing people to use this support and to build their strength. So I strongly believe that we have now, if we talk about dangers, we should always ask ourselves also if there is anything imperiled, who puts democracy in peril. So definitely, I would draw your attention to those who are trying to make out of democracy caricature. And that is what we already mentioned, but it's not only President Putin with his system in place, but unfortunately we see such a danger also in Egypt. We see such a danger in many other places. The civil society today in Egypt is under extreme pressure from the military structures. The people are in prison. 500 people are sentenced to death. That is unimaginable in a democratic system where such a things happens. And I don't see an easy way escaping from this dramatic pressure. Also, the NGO law, for example, in Egypt is extremely tough. It's very difficult to register new NGO. It's very difficult to register international grant for the NGO because the state structures are making life difficult. I see a lot of similarities between this approach that was also presented in Russia a few years ago when the foreign agent law was implemented there. So that is the reality in which people who are fighting for democracy are living, and it doesn't make their life easier, but at the same time they are there, and we have to see them, and we should not forget about them. So who is putting in peril? If we talk about annexation of Crimea, it's not a danger for democracy. It has nothing to do with democracy, actually. It's totally different picture. President Putin, by annexing Crimea, by using hard military power, actually is pushing us to the corner he wants us to be. He wants to restart a game of influence and negotiations of influence that we would stick to on his terms. When he sometimes makes step back, sometimes step forward, it's not the paradigm that we want to be in. That is exactly the caricature of the new world order based on values and on freedoms. And if we accept this logic, that this is a really a danger, this is really a situation when we are becoming a direct victim and also being in conscious effect of Putin's manipulation. So we should really try to reject this kind of paradigm, like we should reject the paradigm that supporting civil society is a foreign agent work, it's a spy work. This is absolutely false paradigm. So these are the main dangers of democracy and democracy transition. And we should remember that transition to democracy, as democracy itself, is a process. There is nothing like we can say we achieved democracy. Poland, Czech, Western Europe, America, doesn't matter. It's an ongoing process. All the time, it needs attention. And that's exactly was the trap that Ukraine fell after 2004, because people thought we went to Maidan, we made our new opening, and now elite will take care of it. Same trap is ahead of Egypt. Same trap is ahead of many nations. Democracy means on daily basis we do control. We do look what elites are doing. We do not allow any violation of basic rights and basic freedoms. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now we will turn to Piotr. I'm sure when you deal with the European Union, you are used to hear a lot of criticism. We've already heard a bit that the former instrument for supporting democracy and human rights, it's slow, bureaucratic, and it has not worked so well in the past. So my question would be, if the European Union foreign policy can be effective when there is no actually unified and common foreign policy, how do you among the EU member states, how do you reach an agreement on, for example, supporting third countries?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the shortest answer would be twofold. I think it would be wrong to assume that, or maybe we would put it differently. I think it's too often we treat the absence of the common foreign, real common foreign policy as a pretext for not having a reasonable democracy promotion policy. And secondly, I think it's also a false assumption that the EU has not had a concept or a policy of democracy promotion. The problem is that this policy has failed. So these are two different analyses. And I will try to briefly explain that, because as to the first, I think the European Union fared for quite a long time after 1989 quite well in terms of democratization without having a very coherent foreign policy as we would all wish. I think the sheer existence or coexistence of the European Union or the European integration process and its neighborhood was a democracy promotion instrument. The democratization was a sort of a default mechanism of the EU integration process. And we have witnessed that, especially in our part of Europe. Central and Eastern Europe was clearly the part of the world which benefited from it. And the best example that the democracy agenda of the EU worked. And this is it. We didn't. The EU did not need to have a very clear-cut concept for that. It was this clearly the EU model, the EU democracy model was so much attractive that it worked and was emulated in this part of Europe, and the very fact that the EU was open to other countries, other states, was a huge incentive for proper democratization. And the question is, why did it change? And I think, of course, there's a number of reasons for that. But the first would be certainly that the EU enlargement consensus has gone. It's no longer in place, so this incentive is absent. The second reason would be that the very model of European democracy is probably not as attractive anymore as it used to be. And the EU democracy, not only the EU as organization, so with the EU, the democracy in terms of the EU institution, but also the democracy in the nation states in Europe, is in deep trouble. So it's probably less attractive than it used to be as well. And we also have what you, Kinga, mentioned in your introduction. We have also some alternatives, some models of illiberal democracy or authoritarian regimes, which could seem as maybe not as blueprints, but at least it's something it's worth looking at in some parts of the world. So these old system of democratization doesn't work anymore. But I think it would be false, as I said in the beginning, it would be also a mistake to say that the EU has not had an answer to that. The EU had an answer, and it was, at least with regard to the European neighborhood, it had an answer, and it was the European neighborhood policy, which was in which the democratization component was quite pronounced and was important, but it was, as we have learned, especially after the Arab Spring, but also after the developments in Ukraine, this democratization component was badly designed. And as much as I agree with Jerzy Pomianowski that you cannot, of course, export democracy. It's not possible to impose democratic rules and export them to other countries. I think part of the problem in the European neighborhood was that, as I said, the ENP, the neighborhood policy and its democratization agenda was based on false premises. And why was it so? What was wrong about this approach? I think probably the main mistake was to assume that the countries, the partner countries in the European neighborhood are all committed to the EU values, and they clearly are not. And the ENP democracy agenda was structured in a way that it was based upon a conditionality principle. We assumed that if the partner countries would follow our principles, would follow our vision of democracy, they could be offered some incentives also in financial, economic terms, and it could be brought closer to the EU. But none of this has really worked because at least probably the majority of the countries, especially in the European South, were not interested in following the European model, and also the incentives offered by the EU were very small. Just to give you one figure, the whole budget of the financial offer to the ENP countries in the former multi-annual financial framework of the EU was, if I'm not mistaken, about 12 billion euro, and this is more or less the same amount of money as Russia offered to Ukraine after Yanukovych declined to sign the association agreement with the EU. So that gives you a sort of an idea that was somehow, it didn't really match the expectations and the needs on the ground. So this is one, I don't want to go into details because we don't have time for that, but I think this is at least one of the problems with this EU democracy promotion agenda. And the issue is finally what to do about it, how to improve it. And I think there are two questions which should be asked. I don't have a very good answer to that, but I think we should first probably think how to reshuffle this conditionality approach and how to change, how to put focus in the European democracy promotion policy more on what Jerzy Pomianowski is doing with his institution, with the institution he's leading, and not it means to put the emphasis more on the civil society, people-to-people contacts, to identify probably some actors in the civil society of the respective partner states who are not maybe responding 100% to our vision of liberal democracy, but who are important in terms of the transformation, democratic transformation of these countries. And secondly, there is a question which is probably equally important, but probably much less nice, and this is the question how to deal with illiberal regimes in our neighborhood, because it is something which will probably pose a more and more important challenge to the EU foreign policy. How to deal with people like Yanukovych or Sisi or the others, because considering the fact that they are not our ideal partners, but they are certainly important from the geopolitical point of view, and how to get it right in terms of our democratization efforts. So this is, I think, there are two big challenges which need to be discussed within the European Union in the coming months and years.
Thank you very much. Now we will turn to the questions. We have about 10-15 minutes. Please, Kurt. And if you could please identify yourself and indicate the person to whom you asked the question, if possible.
Sure. No. This is I'm Kurt Bassiner from Democratization Policy Council and also co-author of the Diplomat's Handbook. A quick comment and then 2 questions, but I'll be quick. I don't think that the alternative models have any soft power with people. They have a lot of attraction to governments. The Russian model, the Chinese model. I don't think they have any play at the civic level. I just thought that's important to make. There's no equivalent there. My first question is to Ms. Kruk. I wanted to get your sense of how much damage the lack of a formal European perspective for Ukraine had in the aftermath of the Orange Revolution, leading up to Euromaidan, and how much traction you think might have been possible, how much reform, forward movement you could have gotten, had there been a formal possibility of Ukraine joining the European Union, which still is not the case. And my second question is for Mr. Pomirovsky. I'm sorry, I'm getting your name wrong, Jerzy. There's a competing imperative in democracy support between the people who pay the money and the governments in the endowment wanting to be able to count every penny, and the kind of restrictive environments in which a lot of the people who need support are operating. And I'm wondering how you all are trying to balance that, especially because you're a relatively small endowment as well as a new endowment. How do you try to balance that imperative for sort of bean counting and effectiveness and helping people as they need to be helped? Thanks.
Thank you. Are there more questions? So we will take 2 more, and please leave the comments for the coffee break and just ask the questions.
My name is Bartosz Mruczkowski. I'm representing European Center of Geopolitical Analysis. Well, I have a question to Ms. Katerina Kruk, because after Euromaidan revolution, I would say, we were talking about democracy, and you said that this is for current authorities. This is actually they not going to break off with the former former system, but when we're talking about Euromaidan revolution, we got to get back to Orange Revolution, because in my opinion this was real freedom.
I'm sorry, just question, okay?
Okay.
Actually, why?
Don't you think that we were dealing more with weak country than with the revolution for freedom, because Ukraine cannot even stay in its own borders?
Thank you very much. And then the gentleman from the back of the room.
I'm Konstantin Agat from Moscow. Just the question is, why can't we make remarks? Why cannot we make remarks?
Because we don't have enough time. The
That
organizers
shouldn't be.
suggest-
I mean, then it shouldn't be called cafe conversations. Then it means cafe lecture. I'm sorry, I'll make a remark.
This is. I did a bad job in, not cutting them short.
Probably
so.
then you learn. My remark, question is to Mr. Pomirovsky. You mentioned, if you could explain what you meant when you said that the Crimea and the whole Putin story of the last few months is not about democracy. I actually think it's all about democracy to a large extent. So could you be more precise? I think it's very much domestically driven, rather this kind of geopolitical scheme which is being played out in this vacuum of global politics. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will go to Katarina first and then Jerzy.
Okay, thank you very much for your questions. And in order to answer both of those questions, I would need a lot of time, because it's not a question you can answer in just in a few words. You have to explain the situation, what was before and what's going to happen. Answering the question about European Union in Ukraine, first of all, in order to understand why European Union, why European values, and why Ukrainians were protesting, because Euromaidan has started because Yanukovych, no, it has started in order to make Yanukovych to sign the association agreement. It has started the night government decided to stop preparations to the assignment, to sign the association agreement. Why European Union is so important for Ukrainians. This is the thing I've heard when I was attending panel speech at PISM, when our Polish friends, they referred that when they are looking into Ukraine, and it was the end of December, if I'm not mistaken, they were saying that when they are looking into Ukraine, they see the very picture they used to have in Poland before Poland has joined the European Union. That for Ukrainians, as well as for Polish people some years ago, European Union means more. It is more about values. It is more about certain level of life, standard of life, set of values, and so on, rather than a political institution or international organization which consists of 28 countries and has a certain policy. So this is the problem when we're speaking about the way Ukrainians perceive European Union. It seems to me that, well, I can give 100% of certainty that about 80% of Ukrainians, they don't know much about European Union. They don't know what it is. They know that they have this ideal vision of the country, ideal vision of the group of the countries which cooperate, which don't have borders, which give you a free hand and possibilities to cooperate and to make your plans come true, not only in your country, but also all around Europe. So it seems to me that it is more because of the perception, and this is the problem we're going to deal with, because you can't. This is why a lot of Ukrainians during during Euromaidan, they were saying that Europe doesn't help us enough, that European Union doesn't show very strong support, because when you're thinking about symbol, when you're thinking about some ideal situation or ideal country, and you don't see them behaving the way you would like them to behave, just because you don't see that they are something else that you have imagined them to be. So this is the problem. And after Orange Revolution, when I'm recalling what was going on after Orange Revolution, it was about political party and it was about political leader. It wasn't about the direction of international politics or direction of development of the country. So the very idea of Orange Revolution was absolutely different. People on Euromaidan, they went to Euromaidan not to support some certain politician or certain political party, but because of this general idea. And it seems to me it will help me to answer the second question. I absolutely agree that, to be honest, it is really very hard to answer this question, because it seems to me that Euromaidan was both a protest because of the weak country, because of the corrupted state, but at the same time it was a protest, maybe not a protest, it was a cry of people to have better situation in their country, to have more freedom, because everyone all around the world talks about democracy, talks about freedom, talks about chances, human rights, the chances to live as a human being with a dignity, and suddenly it becomes a contradiction. So there is this perfect situation everyone speaks about, and there is current situation in your country, and you see that actually it's going wrong. Actually, you have to do something with this. But it seems to me that this decision of Azarov's government not to sign association agreement simply was the very last drop. Because I was studying in Poland, and I have moved to Ukraine 1 year ago, just few months or just half of the year, just before Euromaidan. And the only question I was asking my friends and my family, why haven't you started it before? Because there were so many reasons and there were so many problems in Ukraine that you simply need a match. And not signing an association agreement was this small fire, small blast to start a huge fire all around Ukraine. We had too many reasons to start Euromaidan or another kind of a rally even before. It was simply the very last drop for people.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will answer the second question first, because I think we have a same understanding. In a sense, it was from my side maybe a bit provocative, because first I said the annexation of Crimea has nothing to do with democracy, but then I said that actually the Putin aggression is actually putting us into the new paradigm where we will stop talking about democracy and we will start talking about zone of influence and negotiation in the style of Cold War. So in that sense, you're right. But what I wanted to say is that under Yanukovych, the Ukraine came to the, as we already also heard, to the position of the failed state. And the failed state situation allowed, or Putin just took advantage on this situation, and that's why annexation was possible. But in that sense, the annexation of Crimea is not directly related to the crisis of democracy in a world sense, but it is very locally, but has a very global result nowadays. But what I wanted to really say to provoke this thinking, like when we see the top-down action that is deliberately meant to divert attention from the democracy to some other issues, that's how I want to make this distinction. So in a sense, I think we agree on this. Regarding the donors' requirements and most hostile environments where endowment is operating, the good news is that the donors realizes that indeed they do not have enough good procedures to provide support in most hostile environments. That's why they agreed to create endowment and to give us mandate to have a very non-bureaucratic procedures and to take a risk that sometimes even we are not able fully to control how the money are spent that we send to support people, but with a great deal of trust, with a great deal of sympathy, we are taking this risk and providing support even when the traditional accountability systems are not possible to be in place.
Thank you very much. I was said that we don't have any more time for questions, so I would like to thank you for coming and thank the speakers for accepting the invitation and being with us today. We can take the questions and comments to the coffee break that we have now, and please join me in thanking our speakers for their intervention.